History of Kingdom Simraungadh. Nanyadev, 1097 to 1135. In the Middle Ages, Nanyadev was a powerful king who established the kingdom of Simraungadh or Mithila as a powerful kingdom in the central Terai region of Nepal. His story has given special importance to him in the medieval as he established the region as a strong power by establishing and expanding the kingdom on the basis of military power, developing the kingdom of Mithila and freeing it from external aggression and instability. He himself was a feudal lord of the kingdom of Karnataka and a hero of the military campaign towards North India. Although Nanyadev came from the southern Indian state of Karnataka and established an independent kingdom, Simraungadh in central Nepal, it is difficult to know much about him as he was born in South India and spent most of his life there. It is confirmed that he was a feudal lord of King Chaulukya Vikramaditya IV of the state of Karnataka and became the king himself by establishing the territory he had conquered in his conquest of the north as an independent state. There are even some misconceptions about him. According to some genealogies, in addition to establishing the kingdom of Simraungadh, he conquered the kingdom Bhaktapur within the valley and became the king of the valley for some time. Daniel Wright mentions that Nanyadev had conquered the Nepal valley and started Saka Samvat. But another writer, William Kirkpatrick, has mentioned that he began Nepal Samvat. But there is no truth in these things, and even the writers must be confused on the basis of psychic things written in these genealogies. The fact is that Nanyadev did not even enter the Kathmandu valley, and even though his army attacked the valley, the army was defeated. There is no basis to say that Nanyadev introduced the Sambat as the Nepal Sambat was introduced in Nepal 2018 years before the arrival of Nanyadev and the Sak Sambat was introduced 860 years before his arrival. Nanyadev was an ambitious founder of the Simraungadh kingdom, an efficient ruler, and during his 38 years of rule, he was able to build the infrastructure of the Maithili region of the central Terai, a fragmented ancient civilization, as a strong and prosperous kingdom. He is credited with making Simraungadh his capital and establishing the entire Mithila region under the Karnataka dynasty as one of the three forces of Nepal. He initially worked to expand and strengthen the Simraungadh kingdom he had established. It was only after the awakening of Mithila that he started attacking the outer region by invading the valley in 1111 AD. Above that, it has been mentioned that his sons and grandsons have continued this process. Accordingly, during the internal struggle in the valley in 1300 AD, Ananta Malla of the valley invited the Doi army to intervene. In this, the Doi army was defeated. Even after this, Jayasakti Dev of Valley had invited Doi army for the second time in 1311. Despite the recent invasion and defeats of the Doi power was important to Nepal's military power at that time, and there were indications that its influence has expanded. Another context connected with Nanyadev shows that the Nair caste came into the Nepal valley and the Newar caste originated from it. It is said that some of the Rajput regional armies of the Nair caste of Maharashtra who came with Nanyadev to invade Nanyadev became Newars from the same Nair caste who started living in the Kathmandu valley. But even this is not true. Although it does indicate the influence of Nanyadev, the Newar caste has existed in Nepal since before the entry of Karnataka dynasty. Little is known about Ganga Dev, Narasimha Dev, Ram Singh Dev, Shakti Singh Dev, and Bhupalendra Singh Dev after him, and their genealogical description of their invasion of the valleys are the basis. Ram Singh Dev, 1201 to 1288 AD. After Nanyadev, his son Ganga Dev became king. He ruled from 1135 to 1148. Very little is known about their activities. However, it is understood that he was not very ambitious. He was succeeded by his son Narasimha Dev. It is found that he ruled for a long period of 53 years from 1148 to 1201. He was not a very ambitious king and was more involved in building religious monasteries in his area. Only then did his ambitious son Ram Singh become king. Ram Singh, great-grandson of Nanya Dev and the 4th Karnataka dynasty, seems to be the successor king. He seems to have ruled from 1201 to 1288 AD. He attacked the Kathmandu Valley in 1244 with his own army. But Ram Singh was defeated in this attack. Although he failed in his first attack, his campaign to conquer the valley did not stop. The second attack took place a year and a half after the first. According to genealogy, the attack took place from Kapan around Gokarna area to Munthali area and many Dori soldiers were killed. As Simraungadh was weakened due to the heavy military and material losses, the kingdom could not resort to external aggression for long. By the time of Ram Singh, the kingdom of Simraungadh seems to have been developed into a military power and must have invaded the state of Nepal to open the door to Tibet for their growing trade. After the death of Ram Singh, Shakti Singh Dev ruled from 1288 to 1304. Then his son Bhupal Singh Dev became king. But his reign did not last long, and after him, his son Hari Singh Dev became the king of Simraungadh in 1304. Hari Singh Dev, 1304 to 1326 AD. Hari Singh Dev became the last king of Simraungadh of the Karnataka dynasty, and Simraungadh fell during his time. Jagadish Chandra Regmi has mentioned that Bhupal Singh Dev and Hari Singh Dev were kings at the same time. Due to this, it is estimated that during the reign of Hari Singh Dev, even Simraungadh was ruled by duality for some time. However, Hari Singh Dev is considered to be the last king of Karnataka dynasty. He was ambitious, and during his time, Simraungadh kingdom expanded its military power and adopted an aggressive policy, so he should be considered as an aggressive feudal king. However, he had a marital relationship with Bhaktapur, and his queen Deval Devi was also a princess of Bhaktapur. During his time, the Tirut kingdom was spread over some parts of eastern Tara hills as well as most of the plains of Mithila. The Gopal dynasty had twice invaded the Kathmandu valley during his time. The first attack happened in 1300. In this situation, the state was weakened by mutual disputes when the two dynasties of Devandhari and Malandhari ruled one after the other. Hari Singh Dev's attack took place while one side was seeking the help of the Khas and the other side was seeking the help of Tirut. When Ananta Malla was a king, Jaya Aditya Dev had a dispute and Khas king Jitari Malla had invaded the valley 3 times. Jaya Sakti had invited King Hari Singh Dev of Tirhut to expand his power. On receiving this invitation, Hari Singh Dev's war minister Chandreswar Thakur came to attack the Nepal valley with his army. After the siege of Bhaktapur capital, Chandeswar's army withdrew from the valley by collecting tax. After this, Hari Singh Dev also attacked the valley in 1311 to 1312. In this situation, at the invitation of Jaya Sakti, the Tirhute army laid siege to Bhaktapur. Due to mutual quarrels, the Tirhute army led by Chandeswar had entered the valley this time when Jaya Sakti Malla called for help. This army had captured Maningalf of Patan or today's Mangal Bazaar. The attack was fierce and Patan chiefs were arrested. Many forts were destroyed in this battle. To support Jaya Sakti, the Tirhute army remained in the valley for a year. However, the situation was not so comfortable as Ananda Dev's army had to fight again and again. So they looted Pasupati's property and returned a year later. During the invasion of the valley, King Hari Singh Dev was praised for conquering all of Nepal. During the reign of Hari Singh Dev, his minister Chandeswar appears to have been an influential feudal lord. Chandeswar Thakur. Chandeswar Thakur seems to be a general secretary of Karnataka state and a learned man. He was both Minister of War and Minister of Justice. He was of Brahmin descent, and his grandfather Dev Aditya Thakur and his father Bijeswar also held the same post. Therefore, he led the army and carried out various attacks. In an attempt to restore the Aryan Hindu tradition, he seems to have composed 12 different types of scriptures. He wrote 7 Ratnakars and other books on political and science theology. Chandeshwar is one of the famous medieval thinkers of Nepal. Chandeshwar was well versed in weapons as well as he had practice in various wars. Thank you.